these days, having multi-factor authentication to just any service or server or anything else that we're using is a really important and good way to prevent somebody that we don't want to have access to our account to, well, get access to our account. And using something like Google Authenticator, or just any of those other time-based tokens that you can get, is one of the best ways of setting that up. And we can do that with SSH. We can make it so that we have to have a second form of authentication whenever we SSH in. So what does this mean in general? It basically means that we're going to be relegated to having something we know, which is our username and password, and then also something that we have, meaning that it's like that token. So oftentimes we might use something like our phone with Google Authenticator installed. It may be like an RSA token, or I'm actually going to be using something called a YubiKey. A YubiKey is, I've got it plugged in right now, but it's like one of these little devices that I've got, and it allows me to sort of like set up those. I've got a blank one here that hasn't been set up before. So we're going to be using that to SSH in securely with 2 factors for our admin account. And if any other accounts we want to add into these systems, we can then set up their own 2-factor authentication here as well. So let's go find, there's a great tutorial in DigitalOcean's community tutorial section of how to do this. And we're going to just follow this and get this set up here. So first of all, in all of these tutorials, make sure that you're looking at the correct version of the operating system that you're working on here, because when I first searched for this, I found Ubuntu 18, which is great, and it actually works on Ubuntu 20 still, but especially if you're using a different one like CentOS, it could be important. All right, so they have an entire introduction. I would recommend you follow this along. If you're not going to follow here and you're just going to try to do this from memory, I still recommend finding these tutorials and just sort of like almost using them as a checklist. It can be really helpful. So let's come on through. First thing we need to do is we need to install this package. It's going to be this libpam Google Authenticator. So I'm just going to copy that. We're going to come back over here. Now I haven't installed anything in here for like a day or so. So I'm going to make sure that everything is up to date apt-wise. And it's just a habit that I've gotten for a long time now. So sudo apt update. Just make sure that it knows about all the recent, the most up-to-date repositories. All packages are up to date, so I don't need to do any updates for it. And then we're going to do our sudo apt install that. Now I found that you can actually do tab auto completion with this. So you can even just type out the first parts of it, and hopefully you should be able to tab autocomplete. If you can't, it's not going to find it and it's not working correctly. So let's go ahead and get this installed. And it's in there. Okay, so once that's in there, it's now time for us to actually run the initialization app. Now this needs to be run as every single user logging into the system. So here I am as just my own user. So I'm in my home directory. I don't actually think it matters where I am when I run this, but I'm gonna run this Google Authenticator. And okay, so before I finish this is going to be really important. Do not let anybody else see your screen when you're doing this. So if you're like live streaming or creating your own videos or doing something else, like maybe in front of like in a library or like in a public place, this is basically going to be that token, that QR code that you use with your authenticator to generate those private tokens. If anybody sees those, they can generate the same tokens if they can like get a screenshot of that. I'm going to show you the entire process, but I'm going to have to reset it and like not take it immediately afterwards. Okay, so do I want authentication tokens to be time-based? Yes, I do. And then it immediately gives me this gigantic QR code. So I'm going to make this, try to make it a little bit smaller, and it made that go away. However, even if you can't use that, the secret key here is basically exactly what that QR code has. So I'm just going to copy that, head over to my Yubico Authenticator, click add. I can't do a scan for this anymore because it's gone. Now, what I can do is I can just say, you know what, let's just cancel this and try it again. Yes. I wonder if it can actually read this. Scan. Oh, it can't see it on the screen. Let's try making everything a little bit smaller and trying again. There it goes. It found it this time. And so here is like just like the name of the, name of my server, Ubuntu, my account name for that. Sure, that's gonna be fine. I'm gonna require that it touches the YubiKey, and I'm going to add that in. And so now at this point in time, I can generate these codes. So if I double click that, touch the YubiKey, there it goes. I can get those 6-digit codes. Now, I also have these emergency scratch codes. That would be a very good idea to sort of like store away just in case. So I will just take these and I'm going to just throw them into a text, a notepad, and I'll deal with those later. Now, do I want you to update this Google Authenticator file? So if I say yes, then this becomes active for me and anybody can use this whatsoever. And well, I kind of don't want to do that because that means anybody who's, watching this can start just using this token and code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say no. And basically it doesn't actually take, and like none of these codes exist. So I'm going to do this really quickly over here to the side now. And I will be right back as soon as I finish getting this set up with my Yubico Authenticator. All right, and I'm back. So I have stored off this new key. It's a brand new one. It's not the same one that I just showed you. And then I said yes, that I want to store this into that .Google Authenticator file. And then the very next thing it asks me here is, do I want to disallow multiple uses of the same authentication? You may notice I'm like covering the screen here with that because I do have like a bunch of the stuff behind there. So the first thing is here, do I want to restrict this to once every 30 seconds? So what this means is, do I want to be able to use the same token over and over and over again? If, for example, I log in once and then try to log in again within that 30-second frame, it's going to be the same token over again. If I say yes, do I want to disallow that? Then I have to wait until the next token exists before I can do that. If I say no, it will allow me to use that token as many times as possible. Generally speaking, we want to say yes here because that's going to slow any attackers down and prevent us from being, getting basically brute force attacked by somebody being able to like use that token over and over and over and over again. So let's go ahead. I'm going to say yes to it. And I'm going to switch over to the secret stuff to be able to say yes. And then we're going to be right back to the next thing. Okay, so next question. by default, a new token is generated every 30 seconds by our mobile app. Okay, that's fine. There's a skew that means though, because it's possible that it might take us 30 seconds to read the token and then put that in. And if it took us 30 seconds just to read the token and put that in, we're then out of luck. Especially if we have like a slow internet connection or something weird is going on there, that could like just basically put us into a perpetual never able to log in cycle. And fun fact, I actually worked with a blind user at one point in time. I guess like he had a tiny bit of eyesight. He used a screen reader to read through the RSA token, but because it took him so long to read through the token, it would take him about a minute to get through all of the digits. And I was using the 8-digit RSA fob at that point in time. So we had to make sure that this was set up for him to use correctly. Otherwise, he would never have been able to log in. Okay, so what is this asking? This is saying, hey, do we want to use the 3 codes? The previous one, the current one, or the next one? Or do we want to use 8 previous, the current, and the next 8? That would be 17 codes. So 3 or 17. So I actually, that means like up to 4 minute skew. I am personally okay with having this just be the 3 codes. So by default, it's just the 3. So I think no is the answer I want to do here. So I'm going to do no really quickly. So back to secret, no, and open you up again. Okay. If the computer that you're logging into isn't hardened against brute force login attempts, you can enable rate limiting for the authentication module. By default, this limits attackers to no more than 3 login attempts every 30 seconds. Do you want to enable rate limiting? So basically, do I want like Google Authenticator, like this side, like the PAM module, to be like setting this up for us? And yeah, I think we kind of do. So I'm going to say yes to this one. And that's it. That was the last of it. So now I can finally clear my screen, and now we're good to go again. So back to our tutorial for this. We ran the Google Authenticator app that created this file in our home directory. Now, if we do have, as I mentioned before, if we do have multiple users that want to set this up for us, then they're going to have to log in and run that themselves. All right, let's skip down to the next section where we're going to work on, which is configuring OpenSSH to actually use this, because just setting up that file isn't enough for us to get going yet. We have to actually configure SSH to now use this PAM module. Okay, so this is really good advice here, and it's something that I learned a long time ago. Always take a backup of these critical files before editing them, because it's super easy to just lock yourself out of your account and never be able to update it. And now you have to just restart from scratch, essentially, if you screw yourself over too much. So let's go ahead and set this up. We're going to be working with the etc pamd sshd file. So I'm going to actually just move this over to the left here. Find this. Going to put this over on the right. And let's go find that. So etc, the pam.d. Here is that sshd file here. I'm going to go ahead and create a backup of it, because I'm not assuming that I know what I'm doing. In fact, it's good to just assume that you can make mistakes. No matter how often you've done this correctly, just always take your backups. Just be very slow. Use checklists. I'm actually using this as a checklist. Okay, so I notice that this is owned by root, and I do not have write access to it. So I'm going to have to sudo copy sshd to sshd.back. Now we can see here's that sshd.back. This could still lock me out, but we have the file that's in a working state right now, so I can just put it right back if needed. All right, so sudo vim sshd. And they're suggesting we need to add these 2 lines to the bottom of the file. So let's head over to the bottom of this file here. And we see here's this include common password. We're just going to go down 1, copy this, and paste you in. Okay, so if we take a look at what this is, auth required, PAM Google Authenticator.so, null OK. So basically, if we have that set up, then use it. Otherwise, don't. It's also okay not to use it. And PAM permit. Okay, so basically we can do it. If we took off this no OK, it would basically mean, okay, you have to use Google Authenticator. If you don't have Google Authenticator, you can't log in. Okay, so we're going to save and exit this file. Next up, we're going to update the sshd config file. So cd into /etc ssh. Here is that sshd config right there. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with the backup. In fact, you notice I already have a backup for this. Well, that previous backup already works. We were able to restart SSH and still connect in. So I'm just going to overwrite this backup. I don't need to keep that. So I'm going to just do a copy sshd config to .back. We need to sudo that. So sudo bang bang to sort of rerun that previous command, but with that sudo. And now we can edit this one. So sudo vim sshd config. All right. Now what are we doing in here? So we're going to set this challenge response authentication. I'm going to copy you, and we're going to, well, actually I was going to search for it, but we're right here. Here it is. So we see this is change to yes to enable challenge response passwords. So what this means is that we're going to be able to log in with our SSH key, and it's going to say, okay, great, but here's a challenge. Give me a response, and that's going to be the token. So I want to set this to yes. Save and close the file, then restart SSH to reload the configuration files. Okay, so save and closed, and we're going to restart SSH, which is this command right here. So I'm going to just copy that, paste you in, paste that. It's restarted. Now, something really important, we're going to try testing that we can get back in again. Do not exit out of the server to then try to SSH back in again. If you screwed something up, we have those backup files for a reason. If I exit out, I won't be able to get back in. So I'm going to come into another terminal window, and I'm going to try to SSH. Let's see, SSH. Come on. There, here we go. And I'm still able to get in. So I'm good to go here. I haven't wrecked my SSH configuration stuff yet. And hopefully we won't at all. All right, so next up, making SSH aware of multi-factor authentication, because you notice it didn't actually make me do anything yet. So we're close, but we're not there yet. So the last thing is we're going to reopen our SSHD config. So we're going to come back to here. So I can just sudo vim sshd config file. And at the bottom, okay, so at the following line, at the bottom of the file, so this authentication methods. Now I noticed that this has these ... dots in here. If I do this copy, just be aware that when I paste this in, that ... came in with it. That's going to be illegal. That's going to cause a problem. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that line. All right, so what did this do? Authentication methods that are allowed here. So we have public key, password, public key, and keyboard interactive. The keyboard interactive here is the important part. That's the thing that's going to say, hey, use like my public key, for example, and then also have me do something interactively with it afterwards. However, it's also saying like, hey, if I just want to use public key on its own, that's okay too. Okay, so save and close this file. Next, open the PAM SSHD configuration again. So we're going to head back over to /etc pam.d. And I don't need to take another backup of this because we had the previous backup. We know it's working so far, so I don't need to like retake another backup of it. So sudo vim sshd. And all right, so find the line include common auth and comment it out. So let's go ahead and find include common auth. The easiest way is just to a search. So this is Vim here. If you're using something like Nano, it's going to be a different method, but I can just use a / that drops me into search mode. And I'm just going to search for common, and there it is. I'm going to go to the beginning of the line and insert a comment. Comments in these files are hashes. And we're going to save and close the file and restart SSH once again. All right, now we're going to try logging in once again. So I now have two things logged in. Let's go ahead and create another WSL Linux terminal, and we're going to try logging in once more. Oh, I need to tell it to use that key. So if you ever run into a problem where you've like not using a standard key name and so therefore can't find that, or if your like SSH agent isn't running for some reason, then you can use the -i command with SSH to specifically tell it which identity file or SSH key to use. So in this case, I'm going to use .sh, the ID, that with tutorial. It's going to ask me for this passphrase. I have that right here. Wait, no, that's the wrong one. It is this one. Hey, look, and it asked me for a verification code. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up this. We're going to touch YubiKey, get this token, paste it in here, and I'm in. So this is now two-factor authentication using Google Authenticator, but really I'm not using Google Authenticator on like my phone for this. I'm using Yubico Authenticator. I'm using the actual YubiKey for this. And now I have two-factor authentication set up. Is there anything else that I need to set for this? Not really. Like there's possibles to add like factors on top of this, but for the most part, like this is good. If I try to SSH in again, I have to wait for those 30 seconds for another code to be able to use. That being said, this is what makes me comfortable having SSH up and running, even if it's on the standard SSH port on one of these systems, because that I now know that if somebody wants to like hack into my account, they're going to have both of the factors. Of course, if you're creating a tutorial and you expose all of your keys, that could be a potential security hazard for yours. So I just recommend you don't do that when you're setting up yours. But with that being said, I hope that you have a good time setting up that two-factor authentication and able to use it and sleep better having that set up on your systems. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.